All right, so the first thing that I would like to share with you is just the board. All right, so on the effects board, I posted this first thing just the other night, just because I thought it was interesting. I thought that it was really easy to produce. You can see that thing moving around there, you know, and there's a little fire blasts that go out, and the fire is just wiggling around a little bit. So, and again, you're all invited to see this. So, you know, take a look at that. I thought that this was interesting, this little lightning GIF. More to the point where it like interacts with the ground and there's like sparks that fly up. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I posted this little bubble thing here because it depends on what you were thinking of. If you have your chemistry lab and you have some bubbles that are floating out of a beaker or something, a test tube or something, then you may not want the bubbles to do anything else except float up and away. And this just gives you an idea how to render them with the highlight and the opposite light. I posted this one just because I thought it was terrible, the fire here. You know, fire can be really stringy. It can certainly have that kind of tendril and almost like a weed kind of look to it. But I think that whoever's demonstrating this definitely overdid the first drawing and the layout. And I think that they could have easily just kind of made it more interesting instead of more like a weed. I think the final result is okay, but I think that if you were looking at this fire and you really thought about just the energy being expelled from whatever it is that's burning, the piece of wood or a tree or something, you definitely want to get the gaseous part, the part that is on fire, to be hotter and brighter and wider at the source. So I think the problem with this one in the third position here is that there's too much in the middle, and it might be just a little too high in terms of what you would expect for the negative space in the fire itself. Again, we're talking about plasma and beams, and I think that this one right here was just kind of interesting. It's got some different ways of looking at the what you would consider trailing the orb as it comes into your final shot, you know, and it can have this kind of watery look to it. It can have a fiery look to it. It could have a magical pixie dust kind of look to it, and just the idea of playing around with the different shapes. And you know, when you click on that, you're going to get a random thing, but this is interesting to me. So when you're thinking of what you want your orb to look like, you know, there's all kinds of things here that you should be thinking about. So let's just leave that one right there. All right, so let's take a look and see what we got to. All right, so I wanted to ask you, someone respond. Last week I said I was going to do a sketch of the water splash, the bubbles, the steam, and the rain. Did I show that one to you? You could just shake your head, notice it. No? Okay. So I did a drawing. I'll show it to you because it might be something that kind of just get you going there. All right.
Wait,
so,
I do remember that you did some sketches. You did the thumbnails. Some
for
of those.
the alternate volcano ones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I have those here, and I did the double sketch of the there's a chemistry lab and then the witch's lair. Yeah, I showed that to you, but I did one more just of the water. I'll show that to you here in a second. All right, so midterm progress. Someone's got something in there. Rob is not here, but I am recording, so he can pull the critique from watching it later. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty good here. Let me see what it looks like on loop. Actually, I'm going to pull this to my computer, I think. Can I do that? Yeah, here we go. All right, set it on loop. Let's see what happens. Okay, so Rob, I like this. There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff in here. I have some pointers for you that might make it a little better. First of all, I think that it's interesting that the whole mountain does a squash and stretch right there. But the first thing that kind of just catches my eye is that I think the smoke could definitely be slowed down. Try slowing it down by half, make it twice as long. So half as fast, see what happens. Or something like that. Maybe if it's on twos, then, and your smoke is all on one main layer, see what it would be like if you alternate twos and threes, twos and threes, twos and threes. It might make it easier for you, just to make it look like it's somewhat realistic. It doesn't have to be realistic, but all right. So you've got this magical glow in the water here, and you've got kind of a magic thing happening where the island and the volcano that belongs to it look like it's floating. So I think that what you can do is kind of imagine that the area here is area of water is reflecting this light up here. So if you've got this moonlight up here, it would definitely have a if the moonlight is here, and I'm saying that because I see that lots of stars, and your camera is center, then the reflection in the moonlight would be is that you would have the bright spot of the moon here. You know, you might even have an area of the moon here that radiates outwards. And so I think that this is where your bright spot should be, your bright water should be. You know, and you can do the moon glow so that it's catching the waves, what have you. But I think what's happening is if you've got the bright stuff right here, it makes it look like the island is floating. So my recommendation would be is to just go to your vanishing point, do the radial arc, and then make this your hotspot. And then as it goes out here, you can see that you might need like a little hot ripple out here or something like that. And then make this a little darker. So make this brighter, make that a little darker. So that's my recommendation just for the rendering of the illustration of the highlight on the water. All right, so having said that, I'm going to let it play again. So you have the lava coming down. I think the water is really interesting. I have it on loop right now. So let me just take one more look at the water. You've got, yeah, I think that you've got three little splashes that happen here. And I think that they all happen simultaneously. So there's a couple of things that I would recommend here. And the first thing is just looking at your timeline and putting each one of these splashes on the timeline. Like, let's say that this is your main timeline. Let's say that this is somewhere like 10 seconds out here or something. So you've got all three of these water splashes happening right on top of each other. And I think that what you want to do is you want to stagger them. So have one happen here, and then one happen here, and then have a delay, and then have the other one happen here. So break it up. Also, I think you want to go back in there and you do want to make sure that these have a three-dimensional look to it. So if you just see what I'm drawing right here, you can see that just adding the water that's now, that would be in front, is going to make a huge difference, because right now you've just copy and pasted the same animation. And so what I would recommend is now going in and tweaking it, making the cone and getting some of this water to come towards the camera now. Your vanishing point is, your horizon is here. So that means we would definitely see the leading edge of the cone here, just making each one different. So stagger them all along the timeline, and then add some special bits. And then don't forget your ripples, because that's going to be a big selling too. The ripples from the main splash, and then little ripples where the other water hits as well. All right, other than that, I think it's looking good. The flashes are great. The smoke is pretty good. Let's just see what happens if you put it on 2s and 3s. 2s, 3s, 2s, 3s, just to slow it down just a little bit, but it's looking pretty good. All right. All right, Millicent's tornado. I'm gonna pull this one too, I think. Okay, you've got the rotation working pretty well. It's a pretty quick loop. My QuickTime movie's not showing me more than 1 second, so you could have as many as 2 seconds. It's just not reading. And I think that that's okay. You can certainly have 48 frames, but I think that what you would want to do here is take the animation that you've got, and I'm waiting for Zoom to give me my draw thing back again, and it's not behaving. Let's try this. Oops. All right, sorry about that little zoom window up there. So, I think that this stuff is working here pretty well. The timing is working okay. This stuff right here, the stuff out on the outside is working pretty well. This stuff is working on the inside pretty well. I would try to add some other colors in there. And so if this is your timeline, if you've got all of the stuff working here with 2 seconds, then own it. I think that you have this like curve where the top is slanted a little bit, which is fine. You can certainly do that. And just finalize it so that maybe you've got some stuff out here that's just moving a bit slower, just because that's the nature of it. Get this stuff, like this cloud right here actually comes around and then comes up and disappears and then becomes this cloud in the term of maybe 6 seconds or 8 seconds or something. What that's going to mean is that you take the main animation that you've got right here in front of us and then just copy and paste it 2, 3, maybe even 4 times, so that then you can play with the slower moving smoke, these slower moving clouds that are out on the edge. And that may only be 4 seconds, and that would work fine. But then you've got to contend with your debris. I think that it's not complete yet. And what I would do is give yourself the arcs. Remember, you're quite a distance away from the tornado itself. And so draw these out there and then actually get the projectiles to come up and down and over and follow through with them. So if you're happy with the main clouds and then the upper clouds, right? So this is the upper clouds that are moving on, let's say that you actually do get them to move on 4 seconds. This is 2. And so copy and paste the main clouds 3 more times, and then copy and paste the upper clouds twice, and then just animate the debris straight ahead. Just, 1, 2, 3, put it on its own layer, but then just get this stuff to go as you like it. And then I think that what this gives you is it gives you a total of 8 seconds, even though everything is kind of looping, but then it'll give you a chance to really play with whatever lightning strike that you would like to work in here. Remember that the volcano, the tornado, both share lightnings. And you could put one lightning flash right there. You could put a little one over here. So that would be my recommendation. And then, play with your opacity. See if you can build in a series of colors where you may have a central core that is part of this primary loop right here, and that you paint it like a different color. I'm just using orange as an example. And then you can build on layers on top of it, and you can say, okay, I'm going to do the orange, and I'm going to do a red layer for the middle. And you don't have to, make it really bright. You can make it semi-transparent. You can make it opaque. Maybe it sits on top of a yellow, something like that, just to give it some variety. You also might want to think that the lightning out here will be against a dark sky. So you want to put a background here. And as long as you've got that working, remember the lightning is just really easy. One thing that really might help you is if you do like lightning flashes down here. So the lightning, the tornado is like exploding power lines, right? You don't have to draw it, but just imagine that there's like a telephone pole here and it blows a transformer. And so you can certainly build in this flash down here where and you can go all the way back to our bomb, and you can just kind of think about what that transformer exploding might look like. So you do like the explosion, and then remember we did our mat for the lightning in both the tornado and the volcano. And here it might just be like a really star shape or something like that. And you're being really stylistic, which is fine. I think that's okay. How many total frames do you have in this, Melissa?
5 frames
This is only 5 frames?
on 2s. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, punch it out, finish it. Use that little suggestion I had there to really get the debris working. And remember that in games, you can have as much time and memory as you want. We're not in the 8-bit games anymore. I put a thing out to my history of games class that right now we're at 64-bit processor. And when we're decades away from doubling that, we'll probably never be looking at 128-bit games, because what we've got for 64-bit is working at 60 FPS at full screen resolution with no delay. So you can make this a little bit more complicated if you would like. All right, thank you, Millicent. Let me refresh this. Okay, so I don't see anything new down there. All right, so let me show you my little flag demo. This is the flag with the little crease in it, the little wave in it. It's quite a bit different. I was also going to talk about that too. All right. All right, so remember that this is an alternate flag. And I'm just going to take a look at my list right here. We've got all right, so it will make sense for the animators, for the game students. This will help you if you decide to do plasma in your orb, and I'll try to do this and then relate it to the orb as we go through it. All right, so this is my principal layout right here. You can kind of see that what I've done here is I'm working with 8-frame waves. And I've decided that this node right here is my keyframe. So I just drawn out this flag that has a couple of creases in it right here. And I want to explain how I do that little crease, how I animate that little crease. And see the little C is for crease right there. Let's start with this keyframe right here. And when I'm looking at this keyframe, there's a couple of things that are really important to think about here. The first thing that you want to think about is that you can see what I've drawn right here is a node. So this is the top of the node right there. Oops, I didn't want to draw that. And then this is the next top of the node. So what I'm looking at is like this little dot right here and this little dot right here are the upper tangential outside curves. And then I looked at this one right here. So you see this big strong line right here. And there's a little arrow here that says, we're only going to do this with 8 drawings. But from this node right here, this crease is going to go at, and you can see the little timing marks here. It's going to go hit this mark at about frame 6, and then 7 and 8, it's going to curl back around itself. So it changes direction. And then the same thing down here. So this is the upper part of the node right here. And hopefully that makes sense. And you can see that what I've got here is I've got this mapped out and this going from this to this to this. And there the flag is just getting a little smaller. It's a ribbon flag itself. All right, so remember, it's only 8 drawings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drawings on 4s. 8 drawings on 4s. All right, so the next thing I did is I decided that I wanted this little circle 8 for the tip of the flag itself. And I just numbered it. So I knew, I said right here, I'm going to have the tip of the flag go counterclockwise here. And then it's going to go clockwise here. And all I needed to do was track it around. So I'm going to go from position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which matches this little drawing right here. All right, everyone okay? And once again, I think that you just, when you're doing your keyframe here, you just make sure that these nodes are equally as spaced as you can get them, because if you don't have these nodes, these upper tangential nodes, then what'll happen is that it'll end up slowing down or speeding up. It would be slowing down if the nodes were close together, or if they were further apart, then it would look like they're slowing down. So to keep the speed of the wind consistent, you just keep these little groups of cycles as close to the same kind of measurement as possible. All right, and then in yellow, what I've done is I've taken the arc. So I know that this node right here, it's going to move from this position to this position. And then it's going to stay in this position, and then it's going to curl around, and then it's going to go into this position. So I do it on the bottom too, just because I know that these little nodes on the bottom now that have the X are going to follow. So this X is going to follow that line of action, that motion right there. So it's really, truly all about the setup. And this flag is very similar to the other one where I'm just going to draw the flag pole on the background, and I'm going to use the moving hold for this little area right here. And so I get this keyframe worked out. Again, I think the only tricky part really right here is that we have to figure out how to do this curl around right here. All right, but we're going to leave our arc layer on, and we're going to be on the flag layer itself, just looking at it. And I'm going to draw it. We already got the first drawing. Go to the next drawing, and I'm going to turn my onion skin on just so you can see it. And I'm going to limit it, yep, just to one drawing before and one drawing after. And you can kind of see, I started this in red. And so I'll go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. So you can see that this little node right here is moving into this position right there. So the first upper tangential node just moved to here. And then I'm going to look at this one. This one moved to this position, frame 2. Same thing here. Now we're looking at this one. This upper node right here is right here, and it moves over here. It's a little sloppy, but it does move correctly. This arc line right here moves the same distance as well, right? You see that? And it's also the back side of it is moving into this position as well. So you draw this little S shape that's moving down the arc. So I'll do that again. So just look at this S shape. So you see this S shape here in frame 1, and then the S shape just moves as an S shape all the way into the next S shape. And hopefully you've mapped it out so that it is not going to move backwards. So you just look at this little S shape right here and this little leading edge that goes with it, and it just moves the same distance in the hash marks all the way down the timeline. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's not moving up or down too much, so that there's a smooth movement between the positions. And then you just get, so you do one at a time. Because if you go back to the first drawing, this crease right here is 2 drawings behind the upper node. And so that's what this crease becomes, this S shape. So let's just take a look at this one. So it's going to move the same distance. You can see I've drawn this straight line right here. And then a little bit keeps moving. And now it starts to have the S shape. It starts to begin right here on the 5th drawing. On the 6th drawing, it really becomes the S shape. And then now here's 7th drawing and the 8th drawing, and then back to the 1st drawing. So animating this S shape with the away edge like that, that's the whole key to getting this to work properly. All right, so let's take a look at the animation just as it's cycling. All right, and then just like the other flag we did, where we have the upper and the lower corner to deal with, this has just got the tip. So the tip right here is just moving. You can see it moving on that circle 8. And so this is the same thing about getting that wave to move. You get the wave to move just like we did before, where this shape is going to move into this shape. It's just literally going to move to the right by the same distance for the tangent on the top of the node. All right, and then remember that the way I did that flag before was that I animated this, make sure that you all understand that this is frame, this is drawing 1, this is drawing 2, drawing 3, drawing 4. And so even just with this example, I've drawn half of it. I've drawn half of it already anyway, because you have to make sure that this corner and this corner are trace backs, right? They are trace backs, and that this is a moving hold. Because you're tracing it back, it becomes a moving hold. All right, so, we've done the flag before. This is just a little different way to do it. You just have to keep track of all the little nodes. You just have to keep track of all those little different little parts. And if you do it, if you understand this, I think that what happens is that you get the idea of how to do a circular concentric circles moving down the shaft of a plasma blast. And so I'll do that one next. All right, so I'm going to put this away. Okay, and it just, all right, so I'm gonna start a new shot here. Okay. So what I'm looking at now is talking about beams and orbs. And the sun is now starting to come in my apartment. Temperature's going up a little bit, so I can take my scarf off. Okay, so let's go here and look at some of the things that what we were going for. And remember, you can't just do this randomly. So really, more than anything, you should have your sketches working. What do you want the orb to look like in your final shot? Are you going for a chemistry lab? Are you going for a witch's lair? Are you going for a dungeon? Something like that. And you could be even more creative than that. It's completely up to you. I think I did a drawing here where a character might have taken a blade, a sword, and they might have directed it, that pointed it at somebody, and it became a gun. It became like the instrument of the orb and the energy that comes off of it. And again, the concentric circles are like in this one right here. So you can see that if you were going for, or any of these actually, in this one right here in particular, that you could see that if you were thinking about doing a plasma shot with this one, that the flag thing I just did for you is, it would help you figure out how to get the nodes to move from one position to the other. It's just that instead of a flag waving with 8 drawings on 4s, that this might be quite a bit faster. This might be 4 drawings on 1s. It might be just that fast, all of these. And so you should be thinking what you want for your final orb to look like. You've all played games, you know what your orbs look like. This board here is just giving you even more ideas. I think that if you were to try to do something really complicated like this, that remember that this is done procedurally, but there's also some stuff in here. This is a good one to look at because the orb itself looks procedural, the fire looks procedural, the explosion looks procedural, but then these little bits of smoke out here, those look like they were hand drawn. So this is a really good one. There's some little sparks that are coming off of there, blue and pink. It's kind of a cool thing. Let me just put this one in the classroom so that you have that one just for a direct reference. What is today, the 25th? All right, and then let me link it. So all you have to do is click it. All right, so let's look at that one again. There's some cool things in there. Obviously, if you wanted your orb to move across the stage and do some stuff, then this is going to be entirely too complicated. But let's look. I'm looking at my drawings of what I was looking at from my orb. So let me just kind of parse this out. This one's got little skulls in it. This got little hands in it. It can be as creative as you'd like. Sometimes you happen when you're clicking on things like this that you hit on sprite sheets. So sometimes the artists are willing to share with you of what their sequence actually looks like. So I'm thinking something more like these two right here on the opposite side of the beer commercial. I'm looking at something like this one right here, which I'm going to click on it, see what references. So I kind of like this one. And this one too. This is kind of a neat little shape right here. And remember that it might look like it's daunting and terribly difficult. And oh, there's a sideways tornado. It's basically the same thing. They're all kind of the same. All right, I'm just studying, I'm looking at shapes. So I guess this is the one I was thinking of for a sword that shoots out plasma. It's kind of an interesting thing. Let me put that one in another tab. Go back up here. All right, so let me start this. In the game, you might have the character in an idle position or in a key position, and they move through an anticipation to do their strike shot. And as they move through that position, they hit the strike. So they hit that keyframe and the blade is already positioned. So in my rough, I'm going to use this layout layer right here. So I'm just kind of looking at what might be So I'm just going to start over here and I'm going to indicate where the direction of the orb is going to come from. And again, I'm just in my, I should be in my rough, but that's okay. I'm just in the layout mode here. So, and I'm looking also at the sketches that I did from last week and saying, I know that this is going to have some, this is a knife right here, but it can also be the orb itself. And so I'm just going to indicate that orb here. I'm going to indicate that the orb has got some energy coming from the center of it. And when I'm doing this, I'm also kind of counting how many tendrils this has. If I start like this and I've already got 6, so I go opposite. It doesn't have to be completely opposite, but right now I'm thinking numerology. So 6, it might have a hot core. The There was actually something the other day that I posted, and it was very interesting. I remembered at the last minute where I put it. I think I put it in the storyboard, and I lied. Let me see if it's in my board. Yeah, it's not there either. Where did I put this? Oh, I put it in bats. It was this one. I just thought it was really interesting to see the, when you're doing character designs, there's a rule in character design when you're using straights against curves. Game students might not pick that up or hear that unless you're hearing it from me or an animator. But I thought this was very interesting because there's lots of straights and the curves are just very definite, and it's very cube looking. I thought that they got a lot out of just straights versus curves, straights versus curves. Very mechanical, very metal looking. Just some interesting shapes just in this one right here. For all of you here today, I'll just put that in the chat. I thought it was just interesting, and the stuff you look at all kinds of designs, character designs, all kinds of stuff every day, and then once in a while something just kind of strikes you. Hey, that's kind of interesting. All right. So let's take a look at this one and then go back to Harmony. All right. So kind of what I was thinking is that, maybe there are some more blocky shapes coming out of, emanating from the core here. And I'm kind of thinking about this as I'm going along, which is fine. So there might be a couple of different sections of it. There might be a repeated shape. Something like that. And I'm just kind of thinking what I want the overall impression of this orb to be like. Maybe I want a really hot core. Maybe I want something that's more organic, that's between the center and the middle core. Maybe this thing is moving. Maybe I can just take this and grab it and copy and paste it a couple of times so that it rotates. And just outside the stage here, let me just explain that if you wanted to get a shape like this, to look like it's rotating, then just look at the center and realize that all you've got to do is match the nodes. And so if you were to say, I'm going to take this shape right here and I want to animate it so that it's looking like it's going counterclockwise, you need to paste it at least 2 more times so that it has that direction. If you were just to paste it once so that this little outside curve right here just went to this position, it would just flash. It would just go back and forth. There would be no apparent direction. So you would need to copy and paste it at least once, twice, maybe even 3 times to make sure that it was moving counterclockwise. So we can just do a demo on that right here. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to put it in the rough layer. And I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to copy it again. And you can see that there's a rotation point right there. And so on this rough layer, what I'm going to do is just make a mark where one of the outside nodes was first. And I've already got it in my clipboard. So I'm going to go out 2 frames and paste it again. And maybe it didn't pick it up. Oops, hold on. All right, I'm going to turn my onion skin on, and I'm going to, so in my rough layer here, if I were to go to this position here and then just do it halfway, it wouldn't be very happy. So I want 1, 2, and 3 positions here to get this thing moving all the way around. So I'm gonna select it. I'm going to rotate it until just that position right there. And I'm gonna copy it again, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to rotate it just a little more. And I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to here. So I've got 4 distinct drawings, and I've just lost my little registration. That's okay. All right, then I'm going to increase this to 2s, and then I'm just going to play this 4 frames on cycle. All right, so I did something wrong. Hold on. Oh, hold on. All right, so do you all see what I'm doing there? It's just, if I were to draw, if I were to have drawn it a little bit more evenly, then you can see that the spinning of it would have been smoother. But even though it's not, it still works perfectly fine. If any of these little gear parts here were remarkably different, your eye would pick it up. But because they're pretty similar, I think that if you were looking at wanting this little area right inside here, oops, I don't want to do that. If you wanted that little part of the orb to spin, that's a really good way to do it. Okay. All right. And so again, what this is just suggestions for how these little energy parts might come off of the center. And this can be like lightning. They can be really fast. And so in this little layout, you've just got 1, 2, 3. And here it might dissipate out here so that this particular one has 4 different frames on ones. And by the time it gets out here, it's just really light colored. It just disappears altogether. All right. And so these guys here, they can do whatever you would like them to do. They can pulse really slowly. They can move in and out, which might be kind of interesting. So let me see if I can grab just those guys. I'm going to shift select this one, shift select this one, shift select this one. So I'm going to copy it. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just draw these little spiky bits, these little spikes of energy, just a little shorter than they were from the main keyframe that I just drew. And then I'm going to go out here and I'm going to paste the one that I have on my clipboard. And then I'm going to go out here and I'm going to draw these a little shorter again. So they're just going to pulse in and out. And we're just looking at the timing for what these would look like on 2s. There's 4 different drawings on 2s. So it's pretty quick, you know, so you have to figure out what your timing would be like. If you wanted this to happen more slowly, then take these out to 4s. So now that little pulsing thing on the orb itself is moving on 4s. And I have no idea how I flipped it like that. That was weird. All right, I'm going to Z back out of this. There we go. All right, so I'm going to continue to Z back out to where it was right here. All right, so now I just want to figure out what I want that plasma to look like. I'm going to use a different color. P1, plasma 1. And I'm just on my rough layout here. So, maybe I want this to be spherical and not quite so flat. And so just really quickly, I'm going to look at some kind of winding plasma. And I'm worried. I'm going to stop right here because I'm going to look at some of the references, and I can see that it's going to be a lot easier if I treat it more like the flag. So I'm going to Z back out of that. So I'm just going to say, hey, what it would be like if the plasma were moving like that. So I got one node here and one node here. And I'm just thinking, this node repeats out here. So let's just test it and see what it looks like. So I'm going to say on my layout, I'm going to move from this position to here to here. So that's equal fourths. And then this one's the same kind of spacing. On the second drawing, it's going to go here, here. Third drawing. I'm going to, there we go. So here and here, and then the fourth drawing. I haven't connected it, but let's see what it looks like. So there could be something there. I think it might look more interesting if we do the timing on it. Let's give ourselves a new layer. All right, so what I want to, this thing here is I'm going to copy and paste this, all of this, and it's not picking it up. Hold on one second. All right, so what I want is I want to make sure that I like what I'm doing with my little plasma burst. In reality, I think that if I was telling a little narrative and I wanted this orb here to come in and then hover, so I can design this orb however I want, and you should be doing the same thing. So, go back and look at what you want your orb to look like. There's lots of examples, just right even here. So once you've got that set, you might want to just get the orb itself to copy and paste and scale up, and so that it comes in, it can do whatever it wants. It breaks the glass window over here, and then it comes in and it hovers for a moment, and then it shoots out its plasma. So at this point, then we're going to figure out, it might be more direct to have the plasma. Oh, it looks like it didn't bring everything with it. Hold on one second. So in this condition right here, you might want to just start like a plasma blast that is, this is going to be on ones. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to get rid of this direction. And I'm going to Z that one out too. Hold on one second. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to study this for just a moment. How fast do I want this blast to go? It's going to have a lead It's going to be on ones. It's going to just move quite a bit more. And it's going to continue to emanate from the center and then continue to emanate from the center. And then whatever you're going to explode. So I'm looking at this being my first end of the tip and the second and the third. So it's moving at a regular rate. And then by the time it gets out here, so I want it to be here, but now the energy is just going to be released from the direction of the orb. And then I'm just going to continue it. I'm going to turn my onion skin off and back on. I'm going to go look at this drawing. And I'm going to kind of remember, I want the end of it to be about right there. So, oops, turn my onion skin back on. So this is the contact point here. And now it starts to just, whatever you want to explode, you know, whatever it's going to be a beaker, it's going to be a frog or a character or something. And so right now you're just kind of working at your base timing. And again, I'm just working at the differential of 6 right there. And in this frame right here, we see one little bit of the plasma. And then now this is just going to take all the energy. This moves even faster than the actual plasma coming off the orb itself. And this is just my rough. I'm just going to study the timing of it. One more frame. This is off the screen. This is off the screen. This is off the screen. We need one more frame for this guy. And just a tail into this one. And let's see what that looks like. Oh, sorry. All right, so I think that this is moving too slow. So in order to fix this, just with my timing, this is my very first frame for where this energy is coming out. Actually, it's not, hold on. This is my first frame. So I want this to go quite a bit further. And then this one, it's going to go quite a bit further. And then this one, it's already hitting where it needs to be just in 3 frames. So this one, I don't need it anymore. We can just kill this frame. But it's in Toon Boom, it's a right click and delete this frame. And then you can do it a number of different ways. You can hit the minus key on the keyboard, which brings that space, or you can shift select these guys and just grab them with a left click and then move them. You got to be careful when you're doing it this way because you can accidentally move it to a new layer. Also, this is kind of weird. It just took this one and left it for 2 frames. So it might be easier to just hit that open frame and hit minus on your keyboard. All right, so I got rid of 1 frame. Let's see what that timing looks like. All right, so that is better. Let's take another look at it. All right, and then the explosion is good too. So that is really just kind of right where I wanted it to be. All right, so let's take a look at this. I believe last week, I put them in here. That shouldn't be in this class. Oh yeah, so at this point, you should have your sketches, like you should be doing them right now, right this minute. We're going to go on break here in a second. You should really know, are you going to work with a chemistry lab? I would highly recommend having some sort of window where the glass breaks, because next week we'll talk about just how to do that. It's really quick. It's really easy. The only thing that you want to do is make sure that there's a background behind it so that you paint the glass a transparent color, so then when it breaks, you can see the background color is revealed. And here I've got just a couple of similar looking orbs here. And remember that in this one on the left, I was imagining that the orb was going to come in and crash through the glass, hover in the middle of the room, and then come right here to this point. And then maybe it's going to explode the beaker on the table right there. And so for this effect, I would have lightning in the background, breaking of the glass, the orb, the plasma blast, that's 4, the steam, which is 5, bubbles, which is 6, and a little fire right here, which doesn't count, but it's like 7 different effects in this one. And the same kind of thing here: window, steam, splash, burning, plasma, explosion. There's like 6 or 7 in this one too. So both of these are okay. Remember last Friday what I said, what I was thinking here was that it's possible in my imagination that this orb just hits something on the table. It tries to shoot the frog, and the frog gets out of the way just in time to jump into the cauldron. And so I don't have it drawn here, but the plasma here would like destroy a corner of the table right here. And then as the frog jumps into the cauldron, the splash hits the floor and starts burning the floor. So for any of these little droplets here are going to burn the floor. And hopefully by next week, this Friday even, you'll have these drawings where you can show me and I can help you think about what something like that might be. We haven't talked about anything like a chemical burn. That's not on our list, but you can certainly do that. All right, and just take a look at one of the other ones. All right, so this was, I thought I did show this to you. This was the water one, where I have 4 different waters. I have rain, near and far. I have the big water splash. I have bubbles, and then steam. And then the 5th one where the lighthouse is flashing its light. So even with this one, there's still 5 in that one. And these are the ones that I started with last week. Just looking at that volcano and looking at the quality of the sketches here, you just saying this is what your final can look like. All right, so I'm back here to Toon Boom. Let's go back here. Let's go back here. All right, so there's nothing new right here for anyone showing me anything. So having said that, let's take our break. And when we come back, I would like you to share with me your All right, so the thing I'm doing right now is I just added a couple of concentric circles to the blast. And those are on ones. So you can see it. What you really have to look for is if you want to see this edge right here.
Billy, I think you have to share your screen.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sharing my screen with you, sorry. All right, let's show you this again. So I did a bunch of concentric circles, like cosmic ripples. So I just copy and pasted the thing and made sure that it was on the rotation point was, pivot point was right in the middle. And so so I did just a couple of them. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, so there's only 6 of them right there, and you can feel it. I think that what you're looking at is timing. What you're looking at is to see if that is something that you want. There's a thing in animation where if you have too many things moving at once, your eye is going to see the thing that's moving the fastest. And so in this case, we've got these ripples moving pretty fast, and this little plasma explosion out here happening at the exact same time. And so you might not be able to see the laser blast of it. But what you can do is, once you get the idea that this is your timing and that you're okay with it, that you can expand on it. You can say, you know, I like this generally. What I was doing was putting this plasma thing here with the actual blast. So what I can do is I can Z out of this, and I'm going to watch that thing move around where all the points. So I'm on the first frame, and once I see this little green guy disappear here, right about here, I'm going to put it on a bunch of different frames because it might be more interesting to see the plasma blast first. So right here, I'm just going to go, all right, so what happens if I start here? I'm going to move it so that it's on the, oh, I just moved the rotation point. All right, let me do that again. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do that one right there. And I'm going to come out here. And so my onion skin is going to tell me, I'm going to start out about right here. So I'm just going to match the center point. And on the next frame, I'm going to match the center point. So I want to be quite a bit faster. If I leave it like this, and I can just go to the command and put this right there. I'm going to copy this one and paste it in this position. And then I'm just going to shift and bring this one really big, put it right on this rotation point. And then the next one, so this frame right here will have just a really big one. Oops. It'll just have, it'll be a little different than the one we just had. That's okay. And this one right here, actually, let me move that a little bit. The rotation point's not right in the middle. All right. So on this frame right here, so this one is going to be really big, and we're just going to move it. So that one you will see. So now what's happening is we have this concentric circles starting, ending with the starting of the plasma blast. Remember, we're just looking at timing. So again, in our discussion, I wanted this little orb to come into a position. It's going to break a piece of glass. It's going to float. It's going to move. And once you've got this whole thing built here, you can just copy and paste it along the arc, and then you can have it in this position here, and it can spin around a little bit. We talked about using this kind of thing here to move around the core, but right now it's just going to do that concentric circle thing. So that, I think that's working pretty well. It's got the energy exploding. And so there's a whole, even with just that sense of timing right there, where you've got the radiating concentric circles. Radiating concentric circles. And then the blast itself, just 3 or 4 drawings. Then the explosion. So that just right there, that's a good sense of timing. And again, I think that the demo here, I want to do one more that just has that wave form in it. So let me do that one and then I'll catch up to you. So what you can be doing in the background is doing a sketch of what you're thinking of for your final and then uploading it to the thumbnail. 25 April, that's for today. And I think there's one in there. And then we can give another block of time where I will do another drawing of the, so what I have right here in front of me is the chemistry lab and the witches lair that just has the layout. But I think that what might make sense is if I spend a few moments showing you a before and an after image of what those layouts might look like. So I'll do that too. So let me do this one first. All right, so this, I'm going to turn this plasma off. And what I'm going to do is then we're just going to talk about plasma 2. All right, and then I'm going to give myself a plasma 2 color. All right, so from the wave demo that I did earlier with the flag, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on my layout right here, which I should really call my arc layer layout, I want to figure out what I want this to look like. So right here, I'm just, and so in this version right here, there's just going to be a direction coming from the center. And on that, there's going to be a plasma wave. And what I'm thinking is that I want at least 3 nodes so that I can get it to move quickly. And in my layout here, I can make these opposite so that I can have 2 sets that are moving at the same time. Or again, that's just my layout here. And so I've turned this one off. And so let's just kind of imagine that the direction is right there, the speed is right there. We're going to come out to frame 8 and we're going to start this thing moving. So I'm going to think about this for just a moment. So what I want to do here is I want to put a node on my arc layer because I'm just going to use it as a layout. So give me 1 second. All right, so I'm going to put a transparency node on the arc layer. So I want my arc layer to just be diminished a little bit. It's right in the middle. And it's already 50%. Bump it up a little bit more, a little bit more. All right, that's fine. All right, so again, we're looking at the images that we're using for inspiration. What do I want? I want something fast. I want a plasma blast. I want something that's going to move with consent with a waveform. So in order to do this, I'm only going to use a couple of frames. So I'm just going to start this thing out by giving just a, oops, I want to go above the line and below the line, just for the first drawing. And then for the next drawing, I'm going to bring it out a whole bunch faster. And I'm going to catch up with this leading edge right here in just a moment. But so right there, those three drawings are just the indication of that first blast coming out of it. So I'm only going to be looking for 3 frames in this playback. So I think that's fine. So now what I want to do is I'm going to connect them. So here, this is rough, so I'm going to go back and clean this up in a little bit. So I'm going to connect it. I'm going to connect this one too. I'm going to connect this one. It's roughly. All right, and then this is where I'm going to catch up to my layout. So right now, this wave is just like the first blast. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what happens if I copy just my first keyframe. And sometimes you get lucky that it just matches perfectly. We're not going to see if it matches perfectly. On our layout here, we've got our timing, which is about like that. So if I need a middle and fourth, a middle and fourth, a middle and fourth. So that's my general timing here. Looking at this, I'm just guessing it's going to be too slow. So I'm going to Z out of this and make it 3 instead of 4. So I'm just going to divide this up into thirds. So each one of the nodes is just going to have 2 drawings in between it. Because I just have this intuition that it's just going to be, my first take was going to be a little too slow. All right, so that's my first drawing, and I'm just going to do the top first. And so with the onion skin on, I'm just going to copy this node. Oops. Go back to the orientation point, and I just look at this distance. So I'm going to move the flag just whatever that 1/8 of an inch is and take it off the screen. Next drawing, same thing. Start at the rotation point, and now you're just catching right up. So now you're just moving to the first position. And if you get it right, you can just copy and paste those, or you can just say, hey, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say, this is my first one. So I'm gonna command, bring the whole thing, copy it, go to here, paste it, take the second one. Actually, now that we've got it, let's see what it looks like. All right, so it's moving. We need to finish it. All right, so that one's there, this one's there. I'm gonna freeform this one by just going back to the keyframe, the first keyframe. And my onion skin is already on, so I'm gonna go to the next one and do it again. And so what I meant by that is I'm just kind of copying the drawings. I'm not copying and pasting, I'm just tracing back. All right, so now I've got 3 more in there. Let's take a look at it. All right, so now let's do the bottom. So I want this to be doubled, so I'm going to go opposite. And again, I'm just doing the rough timing right now. Using the same principle that we just talked about earlier with the flag waving. Just getting those nodes to move in the direction. This one doesn't have a crease. If anyone wants to do that flag with the crease, I'll give them extra credit. All right, so I'm just mirroring the purple drawing that I'm on this particular frame. And one more here. All right, and then just for aesthetics, I think that I'm going to put like a circle moving along that path as well. So let's take a look at, see what that blast looks like. Now, I think it's okay. It might be shimmering just a little bit. Because I didn't invest a lot of time in it, I can fix it, I can delete it, try something different. I think that let's try that little concentric circle thing here. So what I'm thinking of is that I just want like the main blast coming out. I just want to feel what this looks like. I want to feel what the presence of this like plasma circle just moving down the blast point. All right, so that's interesting right there. So if I wanted to continue this, I would either copy and paste this, but I think that it was shimmering just a little much. So I think that what I might do is just kind of end it. So right now, I think that the idea is to get one wave and then flatten it out so that it is more of a straight line, just one little wave in it right here. And then this will just be a straight line. And then this is also another straight line. And what I'm guessing is that it's going to be a little too slow right now. But let's see what the concentric circles look like right here. All right, they're moving at the same rate. Just goes off the screen, but we'll see one more. All right, so that's the concentric circle just kind of moving down the blast. And again, we're just looking at it in terms of time. I think it's moving a little too slow. So we've got all these drawings right here for P2. Let's do a P2A. And see if it might look better if we just simplify it. All right, so for this one, we're just going to do a simple wave. So for this one, we're just going to do like the main blast coming out about this far. Still emanating from the same place, going a bit further. Off the screen. One drawing where it kind of just tapers off, and then one last one where you just see the tail of it. And then backing up to see if we can get that wave working. This one, we're going to just try a wave just like this. That's double. And moving quite a bit faster. And now we'll do the timing for the little concentric circle. We're going to go backwards and do like a little one right here. But you can see that I have it almost double. All right, so for this one, four drawings, 5 on ones, 6 and off. All right, again, they're rough, it's just the timing. All right, so I think that that's interesting. You've got a couple of things happening all at once. You've got let's turn this back on because that has the concentric circles that are emanating out from it. So there's lots of things to consider here when you're talking about your plasma blast. When you're thinking about having a circle that's just straight onto the camera, you have the energy that's going from the blast itself and you're just trying to figure out the timing at 24 FPS on ones. Most of this is on ones. You got one little wave in right there, and then the concentric circle that is in perspective going off quite a bit faster. Now, we're not going to be able to see the concentric circle that I drew really cleanly because it's right on top of this concentric circle here. So you could delay it by 2 or 3 frames, but I think the timing is essentially about right. All right, so it's just that fast. And if you're going to do any kind of laser blast or bullets or any kind of thing flying and crashing into something, you just have to figure out how far away from camera is, how many frames do you want it. You're going to need 2 or 3 frames to get anything moving through the screen. In a demo that I do in a 2D class, we talk about like the speed of things. And I say, okay, so if I see an arrow, if I see an arrow coming into the frame, and then on the very next frame, I can see the full arrow. If I put the little feathers right there, it won't move. It'll be stuck on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see what the timing is like first, just on ones, because they are overlapping each other, and that's going to be a little smooth. What I'm going to do is take this one off the screen. So now we're just looking at that arrow moving, and we have 3 drawings. It's really close to the camera, so just look for that arrow. Oh, sorry, I stopped it at 24. Let me. So that's about as fast as you can get something to move. Just 3 drawings, 1, 2, 3. If you wanted to embellish the arrow a little bit and say, well, I want to put the feathers on it, but in this drawing, the feathers would be really close. If I put the feathers here, and then on the next drawing, I put the feathers here, you would be in danger of the feathers making it look like the arrow is going backwards. So you might have to tweak it a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. My guess is that we're going to see a little strobe. Yeah, we see a little strobe right here, right where the arrow and the arrowhead and the feathers are. It just stops right there. So the tweak would be is that I'm going to erase this. We're going to tweak it. So if I wanted to do feathers, we're going to have to make sure that the thing that you're drawing is actually itself. And so we're going to draw the arrowhead. We're going to draw the feathers off the screen. And instead of doing anything funky, we're just going to take this, copy it, go to the next drawing, paste it, move it so that it is quite a bit away from the first position. And now I'm just looking at this speed right here. So I don't see the arrowhead, the feathers on this frame. So technically my eye is going to see this mass moving into this position right here. We will see if it works. So I'm going to copy this position, paste it here, and then move it so it's equal distance between the 2 of them. And that's probably about as fast as you can get something to move through the screen. So that works a little better. It reads like a Warner Brothers fast action. If you were to have, let's say that on this frame right here, that you were to have, oops. This arrow right here and it is significantly smaller. So now its appearance is that it's much further away. Let's put it down here. So now it's further away. It's like 25, 30 feet away. So I'm going to copy this one. This one's going to be on ones as well, with that same kind of relative position, but I might get 4 of them here. I might be able to say, hey, you know what? Let's bring this one so we see just the tip of it. There we go. And then, oh, you know what? I did it again. Hold on a second. So there's 4. I'm going to need 5. And 5 is fine. If I put a 6th one in there, it would slow it down. So now I got 5 positions of that arrow moving across the screen. Watch what happens with that speed. All right, so that's moving. It's away from camera. So in the speed of things, you really can't have anything. I mean, let's try it. Let's take this one right here and see if we can tweak this one to get it to move just with 2 frames right here. So on this frame, so now we're just going to be looking right here. So with this one, we're going to increase the overall size of it. And then on this frame, oops, hold on. So now we're just going to move it out here. And remember that what I'm looking at is I've got a mass of feathers right here and the arrowhead. And then I've got the feathers. So if these guys were painted white and this was painted silver, that's still not enough contrast. My guess is that we would really have to stretch our imagination to see this motion moving from left to right. So let's just take a look at it for the relative speed of things. Yeah, it's very difficult to see this. So for this one, I might move this one more off screen. And for this one, I might take it and move it a little closer and we might be able to see it. So they got the relative scale of 20% of the shaft and the feathers, and we might be able to see this one. This is going to be very subliminal. So yeah, it's very subliminal. This one we can see much easier. There's 1, 2, 3 positions. This one, obviously, there's 5 positions. And in our laser blast, we picked 3 or 4 positions because we were imagining that the orb was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 feet away from us, and it's doing whatever it wants. So those little arrow things can be really distracting in there. So what I think I'd like you to take away from this is just the idea of playing with a waveform moving from one position to another, just like we did in the beginning of our demo with our flag today, and then using concentric circles to show that there's a plasma burst just in all directions, and then maybe another plasma burst along the shaft of it. If I was going to redo this, if I was going to clean this up, instead of using this, I would just use the circle template, and I would use the circle template, and I would, hey, oh, I have this turned off. And I would just draw this out, and I would hit the shift key, and I would rotate it in the direction of its travel. I would erase a little bit of it, or I'd build it. I would build it more so that it had some kind of look to it, some sort of volume to it. And you could just build it that way instead of trying to draw it. But remember, the only reason that I did it drawing is I was just trying to figure out the overall timing. Okay, so All right, Millicent, you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so I was hurrying, so perspective isn't good, and I don't have any references, so I just did something quickly. So with the first board, the character is doing homework and is bored, and then through the window, the orb comes shooting through and will break the glass and go head right next to the character.
So
That's
what's
so
your, so it looks like your guy is just collapsing from exhaustion, right?
Well, like I said, I did it quickly.
Right.
He like ducking down.
So does the orb kill her?
No.
So, but she collapses.
Well, she's ducking down as normally if you hear something. These are just the first thumbnails
Okay.
that I have.
So what other kind of things are you going to have in your shot?
I could have a candle that could get knocked over and it could start a fire. Maybe a glass of water could tip over.
So you could have a glass of water and the pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also don't want to make it too contrived. You don't want to make, oh, you're just trying to add effects in there. So I think that you would like to think about what this composition looks like. So if your character is sitting at the desk, then they might be reading a book or drawing, and that the candle might be here, or that the candle is here, and that the cup is here and the water pitcher is here. You know, that makes more sense because the candle is close, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also think that if you're going to just do one candle, you know, that's not going to have a lot of light. So you can play with the idea of there being like a little mini torch, just so that you can get more of a shape to play with on the stage.
Okay.
You know, something that gives just a little bit more light.
Okay.
Yeah, I would make the window bigger so that we can see what the breaking of the glass is going to be like. Even though this is just a sketch, you can still call this the corner of the room, just so that you can have something here to play with as well.
Okay.
You know, I'm not sure. All right, keep thinking about it.
Okay.
Thank you, Millicent.
Thank you.
And Joseph?
So I have two ideas for it. My first one, this one, I was planning to have an orb suspended in the middle of like a science lab, and have the orb violently like bounce around the chamber is contained in and fire off plasma like everywhere. And then the plasma it fires off will hit objects on the left and right, and I plan to have like empty beakers on the left. Then I could include glass breaking, and I plan to have an explosion on the right.
All right, and then the other one.
This one is a simpler variation of what I had just now, where I was planning to have an orb to vibrate violently within a glass beaker in the middle of the room, and then it will break out of the glass and it will rise into the air while it shoots off plasma, and when it reaches the apex of the as high up the screen as possible without it
All right.
it blows up.
So I think that just in terms of stuff to do and relative coolness, right? That this one might have a little bit more potential. And I'm waiting for Zoom draw to come back on. Come on, Zoom, there we go. So this is your orb. So, you know,
Yeah,
work on that shape, right? You know, what does it look like? What is the energy? It's got beams of light coming off it. In this iteration, there's 5 tendrils instead of 6. But compose your shot here. So give yourself an environment so that you have a window that can break. Right? Or not. I mean, if you wanted to, you could have like a little bit stronger of a composition here with these beakers. You have a series of beakers. And even widen it out, so now you've got 3 beakers. So instead of trying to break window glass, you can break the beaker glass, right? But have the orb be the thing that does that. In this setup here, it might be better to have a single perspective, 1-point perspective. So again, I think that you can think about this both cinematically in terms of animation or in terms of games. You know, you can have this thinking about this being a loop, but you can also thinking about having it be just kind of like a short little movie. And I'm just thinking here. So you just pick, right? Just make the decision. I think that something like this might be kind of cool. If you study how the orb is going to blast 3 different beakers, it might be kind of fun. And then just maybe what happens with the liquid that starts to spill over the counter might be kind of fun. All right, just keep thinking about it.
Okay.
All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do an after. I'm waiting for Photoshop to open here. Must have been an update overnight. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about here. So I just pulled this right off my phone, and I wanted to do a drawing for you on pencil and paper, just like last week, instead of anything digital, because then you can kind of think about it. Then you can kind of just like mull it over, and you're not tied to the digital media. But once you do have it digitally, I wanted to give you just a couple clues here. I have my background layer. I'm just going to unlock it, and I'm going to go to my adjustments palette and just turn the histogram on for levels. And for whatever it's worth, if I just, without looking at my drawing, put the black arrow as soon as it starts turning up, and then the white arrow as soon as it starts turning up, and then take the middle and then just kind of find it, this should give you a fairly good result, just straight out of the box. You know, I'm tweaking it to the left just a little bit. So that's just the really quick way to handle levels.
You
And
forgot to share your screen.
oh, geez, I keep forgetting to share my screen. So let me come back out of that. I'm going to throw this level away. So I've got my HEIC. Remember that the HEIC file stands for high efficiency image content. And I just opened it in Photoshop. And my layer's already unlocked. So I'm just going to bring up the adjustments palette and then levels. And this was the original curve I get from my levels. And just by default, without looking at the image, if you take your black arrow and move it to when it starts rising, you take your white arrow and put it to just about where it starts rising, and then play with your middle until you get a good contrast, that should be a really good place for you to start from. You can see I've got a nasty highlight right here, a nasty flash right there. And you can, get rid of some of that just by trimming it. And then just saying enter, but now it's not the same ratio, but that's fine. A lot of times you can even get further, like I'm just going to do this. I'm going to Command Z out of it, but I'm going to use my magic eraser on this level right here. And my magic eraser is set for 11. So that if I hit over here, you can start to see I'm going to start deleting the paper. Sometimes I don't like using the magic eraser. Sometimes I like seeing the texture of the paper so that I know that I was drawing this on paper. All right, so these are the two images that I showed you last week. Just the idea of starting with a chemistry lab or a witch's lair or just something like that. And there's in this one on the upper left, there's lightning. In this one, the orb crashes through this window and just kind of hovers around right here. But instead of using a white and a black flash frame, I did this little study right here that this is the black frame. And then I paint everything else white. So I do like a cartoon silhouette of the way the shot might have looked. And I just kind of pick out some parts that would shine or be dark. So instead of using a whole white frame and a whole black frame, you could reverse it. This is the black frame and then paint everything in the next frame white. So just reverse it from what I see here to what I painted opposite. Same thing with this one. It's that I see that, and I kind of got them out of position a little bit, but these are supposed to be the doorways over here. And obviously, if you're in Toon Boom, you can match them a little bit more carefully. But then the after images are the ones where I was going for. And the idea that the orb was sitting right here, and not only did it just explode the beaker, but it exploded the whole room. And now we can see blast marks in the floorboard. We can see them exposed pipes, and now there's water spraying everywhere. And this one on the left, the whole room is devastated. So I would just replace it. I would do the white frame, black frame flash, and then I would say, oh, here's what we've got. Now I've got a little bit of leftover steam and some water splashing. So, and then this one was kind of the same thing, except that the orb was kind of where the table was right here, and it just exploded, and it just turned the beaker over, and the beaker is now just dripping. It's not broken yet, it's just dripping, but there is a big blast mark in the wall, and the cauldron is completely busted in half. And now I've got this ooze just all over the floor. The witch's cauldron stuff is just on the floor. So just thinking about a before and after image, just really quickly, like I said, I took 10 minutes to do these bunch of drawings just to see what it would feel like, just in terms of composition, just to see what it would look like before you get into the animation itself. And once again, I do like working with this grid because then you're bounding yourself to the 16:9 ratio, turning it 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080. and you know what you're going for. You've got your main perspective in these shots. One of the things that we talked about last week was making your horizon higher than normal so that you have like a tall adult's eye view down on your set so that you can just see more things in the shot as opposed to it just being a normal camera. Your camera's about 7 or 8 feet tall, just so that you can get a better look at it. All right, so having said that, let me go back here. Did anybody else upload anything to that file? No. Let me see if there's anything else here. Okay, so does anyone have any questions right now? Comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? So the whole reason for me doing that in real time was just so that you could get an idea of what it would be like just to sketch out a before and an after for the orb exploding your room or exploding whatever it is in your final shot, just to get an idea of what it might look like. Continue to put thumbnails in this folder here. And I will see you on Friday at 9 a.m. We'll let you go a little early. Does that sound okay, Ryan?
Yeah.
All right, so have as much stuff as you can for me. I know for a fact that not everyone is caught up. I still have some lingering stuff out there for I just lost my control sheet. Hold on a second here. I didn't lose it. It's just on the bottom. All right, so Rob, if you see this, I'm still waiting for your final volcano. You have critique on that right now. Ryan, I need a final volcano. Maybe Friday. What are you thinking? Are you close with it?
Almost. I would say I'll try to get it done by Friday, hopefully.
All right, well, even if you don't have it done, just put it in there so I can give you a critique on it.
Okay.
And Millicent, you have your volcano is still out?
Yes, I'll work on it more.
All right, the more you can get in front of my eyes, the more critique I can give you.
Okay.
All right, and Javon, if you see this, I'm still waiting for a couple of things to be finalized. All right, having said that, look at your folder. All those folders are still open until the end of May, and we will see you 9 a.m. on Friday.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, everybody.
Thanks.